Hello, everyone, and welcome to the International Model Forest Network webinar series. On behalf of the Canadian Institute of Forestry, myself, Sharon Yan, Forest Science Program Coordinator, and Natasha Machado, Director of Programs and Initiatives, we will be providing IT and hosting services for today's webinar. Today is Thursday, March 7th, 2024, and this is the first session in the 4-week webinar series. The CIF is very pleased to be partnering with the International Model Forest Network to host a series of webinars showcase different model forests. These sessions will explore each model forest mission, key initiatives, strategic plans, projects, and the resulting impacts, aiming to raise awareness about their significant contribution to audience in Canada and internationally. For today's session, we'll be featuring Eastern Ontario Model Forest, and we are pleased to have John Pineau, who will give an exciting presentation titled Model Forests, Protected Areas and Yield, the Role of Participatory Management in Reducing Threats in Biodiversity. To kick things off, John Pineau is the Executive Director of the Ontario Woodlot Association and the Eastern Ontario Model Forest. He has a Bachelor's of Science degree in Biology from Trent University and a diploma in GIS from Fleming College. He serves on the boards of the Algonquin section of the Canadian Institute of Forestry, the Canadian Ecology Centre, Forests Without Borders, and the Friends of Petawawa Research Forest. With that, I will now pass it over to John.
Well, thank you, Sharon. I'll just start to share my presentation here for everyone. And I'm thinking you should be able to see it now. And I'll go into full screen mode, which will be nicer for everyone to view it. There we go. I'll just say thanks again to the Canadian Institute of Forestry and the International Model Forest Network for the opportunity to make this presentation. I did a shorter version of it, I think in December, for a group within the International Model Forest Network. And I kind of was excited at the opportunity to build it and bolster it with more content, because it was a very short presentation. And now I've got more of the content that I would have liked to have covered. But this is something that hopefully won't run too long, but it's a lot to digest for folks, and I think it tells a good overview story without getting into too much detail. But we'll see how we do. If you have to cut me off at some point, Sharon, that might happen, but I think I can make it work. So the whole idea of the presentation is to give a bit of a retrospective of the Eastern Ontario Model Forest, where it's come from, what it's done, and where it's going, and within the context of the global sort of situation and the International Model Forest Network. We've done a lot of good work. We have a lot to be proud of, and it's all been the result of participatory management, all kinds of people working together, and the focus has been on a number of key sort of themes. But in recent years, certainly you have reducing threats to biodiversity, and hand in hand trying to mitigate climate change or react and deal with the climate change in the sort of the context of biodiversity loss as well, and stopping that has really been where we've been focusing more and more. So I want to start the presentation with just a little kind of a special announcement we made earlier this week. The Eastern Ontario Model Forest and the Ontario Woodlot Association, just remembering Brian Mulroney, our former Prime Minister, and the fact that he was very much the instigator and the leadership behind Canadian Model Forest Network, International Model Forest Network, during his tenure as Prime Minister, towards the end of his tenure. And this is a letter. You might not be able to read it too well, but it's basically a letter to then President Tony Bull of the Eastern Ontario Model Forest, just talking about the Rio Summit in 1992, where the International Model Forest Network was announced, and sort of the importance to Brian Mulroney of global environmental causes and the importance of making the world environmentally sustainable. So it was a nice way to remember the late Prime Minister, former Prime Minister. Just to kind of give some context overall for those not overly familiar with the International Model Forest Network. So, very, very strong vision, mission, objectives. There's several regional networks. It's well established, and it's been around for all 32 years now. It celebrated the 30th anniversary 2 years ago, and it works well. It has 60 members, and I think that's growing. And Eastern Ontario Model Forest is proud to be part of that network. And it's an exciting opportunity, even though it's been around a while. I think we're realizing at this point how much model forests have contributed to improving practices and sustainability, and had real impact on the ground in different locations, regions, different countries. But collectively, they've contributed very positively to global environmental sustainability and hopefully the mitigation of biodiversity loss. Our focus very much in all of these model forests is to address local issues and challenges and make things better, but at the same time realizing that contributes on a global scale. Every little bit helps. So there's so much potential. There's so much been done that's good, but so much potential for the future with continuing to grow and evolve the International Model Forest Network. And again, the Eastern Ontario Model Forest is very proud to be a part of that. And hats off to the Secretariat of the network based in Ottawa and the good work that they do. There's a lot of material to digest there. I won't read it, but it's on the website, and it's very it's just very suitable and good. Also wanted to give out a bit of a shout out to Bob Bott in Alberta, who's I think probably on this call today, this Zoom today. He sent me a book I didn't know existed, and I kind of got lost in reading it. It brought back a lot of good memories from my time when I worked in Alberta. But the Foothills Research Institute now was formerly the Foothills Model Forest, and everything that it did to, I think, again, address local and regional issues and challenges and create opportunities for better forest management and improved practices. And it's a really compelling read. You can purchase it online there. And there was a chapter in particular, chapter 9, which talked about all of the Canadian model forests, including the Eastern Ontario Model Forest. And it was interesting to read from an outside perspective what people thought or saw as the key role or values of the model forest, the different model forests, in particular ours here in Ontario. And it's always good to get that outside perspective looking in. So thanks to Bob for that, and highly recommend this book. I want to give it a more thorough read when I get a little more time. And I want to do something similar to this book for the Eastern Ontario Model Forest as well. It's kind of a legacy document that we can put together and produce in the next few years. So just to move more specifically to the Eastern Ontario Model Forest, and recently there's been a major development in that there's been a very strong partnership formed with the Ontario Woodlot Association, two very like-minded organizations, often working together, collaborating, partnering over the last 30 years, both basically created at the same time in 1992, and very complementary mandates. So we came together. We originally called it a merger, but it's not really a merger. It's more of a let's say a marriage or a joining at the hip of a charitable organization, and the Eastern Ontario Model Forest has charitable status, which has objects, and they're listed there, and very strongly focused on what you'd expect. And the idea, particularly item number 2 there, protect Ontario's environmental heritage by acquiring and managing ecologically sensitive lands, ecosystems, wetlands, wildlands, wilderness areas, and other places of natural significance. So again, very focused on biodiversity. And Ontario Woodlot Association, same sort of thing. You know, we're very much into the sustainability on privately owned forests, helping each other to be good stewards, and ecological health and diverse woodlands and woodlots and forests that are privately owned. So it was an easy fit, an easy partnership to instigate, and it's been about 2 years now, two years and a bit, and it's gone really well. And I would say both organizations have benefited significantly, and collectively what we're offering now to membership and the public and partners and affiliates is pretty spectacular, and it's improving and growing all the time. So just so you know how the partnership works, we share pretty well everything. Governance overlaps. The Eastern Ontario Model Forest Board of Directors is the same as the executive committee of the Ontario Woodlot Association, the executive committee of the Board of Directors of OWA. And that's the exact same group of people who, you know, go from one meeting to the next, and they just put on a different hat, so to speak. And it works really well. And it's been legally set up that way, formally in the bylaws, all approved. And it just helps to make things happen and to keep both organizations running smoothly. It's very efficient. We also, we'll talk about this, we also share staff, administrative support, project management. The OWA often acts as a delivery agent for the Eastern Ontario Model Forest for some of its key programs. And I'll talk about these programs, three of the key programs involving OWA and IMFN in a minute, but our forest certification program, carbon credits, belong to the Forest Health Network in Eastern Ontario. We put on some major events every year, the December seminar, Kemptville Winter Woodlot Conference, all volunteer run too, by the way, really well done. And then a number of other projects we'll talk about in some detail. And we've also combined our communications and social media presence, and that's really worked well too. It's one of the things in forestry you find in Ontario and Canada is there's often almost a plethora of organizations that are all trying to do the same thing. So whenever we can come together and work closely like this and share the space, mesh our mandates and our products and services, it makes for a better situation, I think. Not so much competition and much more cooperation and collaboration. So there's a lot of benefits both ways, but we have a magazine, the Ontario Woodlander, I'll talk about in a minute, and there's a lot of model forest content goes into that now. It's really bolstered the quality of the magazine. Again, human resources, shared staff, and volunteers. We have an army of volunteers that are very dedicated. It's wonderful. And then communication technology, we've ramped that up. And applied use of charitable donations to the model forest. As long as it's within the objects of the model forest and within the mandate of the OWA, where we can do good things for forest management, for improving planning practice and good stewardship. And this is just sort of the general membership value, mostly associated with the Ontario Woodlot Association. I mentioned the quarterly magazine, the Ontario Woodlander. The cover you see below center is actually just gone to the printer yesterday, and that's our spring issue this year, focusing on winning the battle with invasive species. We have joint newsletters, monthly newsletters, very modern website, database, e-commerce. We do need to update the Eastern Ontario Model Forest website and bring it sort of into a new platform and just generally kind of put some spit and polish on the content. But that legacy of the model forest is still strong. The content is still there. Everything that was done for 30 years, all the documents, all the public information that was created, everything is in good shape and totally accessible and available through both websites. And it's just a matter of upgrading the Eastern Ontario Model Forest a little bit. there's, provincial conferences, hundreds of activities across OWA's 22 chapters, which again, the model forest takes advantage of. The model forest is reaching beyond Eastern Ontario, very much in the way I think it should. It shouldn't be relegated in perpetuity to just one geographical region. It's got to spread what its philosophies and its approaches are everywhere, and that's what makes the model forest successful. That's in the true network sort of philosophy, that we're, wanting to make happen with the International Model Forest Network. Yeah, grow the network in Ontario as well. So just all kinds of good things happening between the two organizations, and I would say the coming together of the organizations has been a very, very positive result. And this is the board of directors of the Eastern Ontario Model Forest, again, also the executive committee of the Ontario Woodlot Association. And these folks bring together a lot of different backgrounds, experiences, knowledge. I could tell a story about each one of them, and good stories. I know some of them might be listening today, but they put on the EOMF hat, and this is how we're organized. And if we have to put on the OWA hat for a separate reason or meeting, just the roles might change a little bit, but it's the same people. We have different presidents and vice presidents for each organization, but it's all the same small group of people. And great that we have the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne as part of this group and on the board and the OWA executive. They were a founding member of the Eastern Ontario Model Forest in 1992. So again, really great participation by different individuals with an array of experiences and knowledge and skill sets. That participatory management of our organizations is key. And it doesn't just, kind of be an isolated thing within our organization. It extends to all our partners who help us to manage things, all the different working groups and I guess collaborators that we have. I'll get into that in a minute as well. And human resources is vital for any organization to succeed. Good people doing good work, and we've got that in spades with the OWA and the Eastern Ontario Model Forest. I think 5 years ago were 1.5 staff, 1.5 full-time equivalents. And now we're pretty well up to 8-9 full-time equivalents plus some part-time people, and all doing really, really good work. And then we have, again, that army of volunteers on different committees, helping us with different projects, different programs. And that just makes a huge difference. Again, lots of people participating to make us successful, contributing very positively to, I just got a thumbs up from President Paul Robertson. I'm at his house here. So that's good. But yeah, we've come a long way in a few years. And I think, again, the merger, or not the merger, but the coming together of the EOMF and the OWA has really made the difference to build our capacity, our volunteer capacity, our human resources capacity, to make things happen on the ground. That kind of participation and not just the decision making, but actual delivery of projects and programs is contributing positively to good stewardship, which includes, of course, biodiversity enhancement, habitat supply on properties, some woodlots, strong ecosystem processes, maintaining them, and restoration and improving things. And that's contributing to a global need that we want to see happening everywhere. So again, just the chapter map of the OWA, 22 chapters, or 21, sorry, in total. And I'm down in our Norfolk chapter, somewhere down around here today. And I work out of up here in our Near North chapter, and our administrative office is down here towards our Lower Ottawa Valley chapter region and Kemptville. So we're all over the province now, and our staff actually generally work out of home offices in all different regions of the province, which I think has a huge advantage. We have a presence everywhere rather than, Ontario's a huge province, and, we have staff that can, travel and basically cover pretty much any part of that province. And that really helps. And we can have projects and programs that impact positively everywhere in the province as well. So again, getting a little more focused and I think I'm going to cover three of our key programs and projects. So much of what we're doing now, I think, has a foundation in the Eastern Ontario Model Forest Umbrella Forest Certification Program. And this was put in place, I think about 20 plus years ago. And there were some key folks involved in getting it up and running. And I'll just quickly name them: Martin Straight, Scott Davis, I think the original program manager, and then Jim Hendry. And I'm sure I'm missing others, but they started a certification program that we could help privately owned forests, whether a community forest or a conservation authority forest, municipal forest, or individual woodlot owners, family woodlots, become certified. And it's worked really well, and the program has been successful. It's grown. And a lot of what we are doing now, I think, builds and complements, very strongly complements this program, which has run for 20 plus years and is growing and expanding. So what is forest certification? Just a quick overview. It's a voluntary opportunity for forest owners to have a third party look at their operations, their management, whatever they're doing, to be good stewards and evaluate it to a set of standards. It includes independent third-party audits and verification. I've tagged along on quite a few of these. They're quite rigorous, and they really look at what's going on. There's no government involvement. It's strictly outside of government. It promotes sustainable forest management and all the good things we can get from active forest management. And I would argue that good forest management doesn't just mean, harvesting some trees, making money. It means all of those things that are important to us. Again, the biodiversity, habitat, ecosystem maintenance, carbon management, sequestration. You can have your cake and eat it too. And we need to restore and actually do more active management in Ontario. We've been very good at tree planting, but not on the follow-up. And there's such tremendous opportunity to do a lot more good active forest management and privately owned forests in Ontario to achieve those key sorts of goals with ecosystems and environmental sustainability. So yeah, the program, 21 years old, started in 2003, and that was simply with Forest Stewardship Council FSC certification, which most people should be familiar with. And just recently, our program manager, Glenn Prevost, pushed it into to the SFI initiative. Well, I missed the spelling. I put an M instead of an N there. But yeah, the Sustainable Forestry Initiative, SFI, is now in our umbrella toolkit, and we can offer getting individual privately owned forests certified under either of those standards. And they're both very good. They're both actually very similar, although they might argue that, but they're good standards and demand and compel the participating private forest owners to achieve that high standard or those high standards. As of today, we have about 74,000 hectares of forest in Ontario certified, about 180,000 acres, 14 community forests, 3 private commercial forests, 74 private woodlots, and 5 maple syrup producers. So, and the program continues to grow. I think we brought in the city of Mississauga and their many woodlots, I think several hundred woodlots last year. We onboarded them, and they're now certified, I believe, under the FSC standard. So continue to grow and build on this program. This is just kind of a map of, you can't really see it too well, but these are where the forests that we are involved in helping to be certified to maintain, to achieve their certification and maintain it under our umbrella certificate. So it's province, it's covering a lot of the province, not just Eastern Ontario, although it had very much had its start in Eastern Ontario. So, for example, Quinte Conservation is a member of the certification umbrella group, and the LaRose Forest in Eastern Ontario as well. And I mentioned the city of Mississauga, the city of Oakville. Yeah, there's quite a few. And then again, more and more of our individual family-owned or individual woodlots are expressing interest. Doesn't cost too much. So the question, why certify a forest? Well, and we get this a lot. I kind of tend to turn it on its head and say, well, why not certify a forest? It doesn't cost that much. I think for an individual woodlot, it's like $70 a year. But if you're selling something from your woodlot, it enhances your product value. People will know if you've got that FSC or SFI stamp or logo on it that it's from a sustainably managed forest that's taking into account all of those important values that we want to locally, regionally, provincially, nationally, on a global scale, make sure we're protecting them and enhancing them and keeping the forest healthy and productive. There's continuity of forest management over time. If things change in regulations or in staffing, government levels, that sort of thing. There's strong public support. It's credible and defendable for community forests. It's just it makes a strong framework for sustainable forest management, doing things right. If you do harvest, and a lot of folks do, and we want them to, that's a key part of keeping the forest healthy in many cases. If it's done right, with the right silvicultural system and isn't at all into high grading, there's confidence that you're harvesting in a way that is enhancing forest health and improving the situation. It goes on, but you keep your practices up to date. There's a great learning network and just a framework for carbon offsets, that sort of thing. We'll talk about that in a second here too. So these are just show quickly the certification standards, the principles on which the FSC is established. Some of them are pretty basic, like compliance with laws, tenure, use, and rights. I mean, this is the kind of stuff the government demands of you anyway. But we have a third party kind of making sure that you are indeed living up to and following the regulations as set out by your jurisdiction, by the government that is responsible. And then it gets into key things like benefits from the forest, environmental impacts, management plan. It's very important. Engagement with Indigenous peoples, that's extremely important too, as part of truth and reconciliation, and doing things right, and with the right sort of tools and philosophies and understanding Indigenous values and perspectives is more and more important than should be. And the SFI standard, very similar, good planning, productivity and health, protection of water, biological. It actually lists biological diversity as a key goal, conservation. There's just no end to the really good detail that's under these key principles and objectives. There are a lot of boxes to tick, in addition to these 9 listed, or the 10 with FSC. And the audits, again, are rigorous. And there's an annual audit, and folks in our program are randomly selected, and they undergo a 1-year audit. And then there's a very, very comprehensive 5-year audits that takes place. And again, you're constantly being scrutinized to make sure you're living up to the principles, the objectives of these certification programs, and doing what's good for the forest and society. So yeah, why wouldn't you want to be a part of that? If you don't, well, I don't get it. But anyway, Canada's contribution to worldwide certification is pretty significant. You can see the different types here, but we rank very highly, and this is both public and privately owned forests. I think that's something to be proud of. This is, again, voluntary and something we want to do. And it doesn't have often a direct economic benefit. I mean, it makes people feel good if they buy your products, that they see those logos, but it's more a case of doing what's right for the forest and making sure that, you know, you're fully accountable and living up to, you're walking the walk, you know, you're not just talking the talk. So just really quickly on the carbon offset program, that kind of goes hand in hand with our certification program. We kind of implemented this a few years ago. And, you know, the premise, of course, is there's lots of carbon stored in forests, and owners can sell that carbon in the carbon market as they get established. It's additional revenue. It helps the landowner realize some revenue for healthy forests, maintaining healthy forests. Good conservation practices are maintained, and it's a way of, you know, further enhancing the value of your forest, and an impetus or a catalyst for, I guess, you know, keeping things running in a positive way, stewardship wise. So we have an agreement with a company called Pineau. We're going to realize our first sale. We got kind of a finder's fee, and one of our certification holders, I won't say who, they've sold their credits, and they'll realize some money to help them actually fund good forest management. Like, it's going back in to, you know, good silviculture, and you know, the staff and the tools and the equipment and the time to make sure that the forest is well managed. So it's kind of a win-win in that way. And we'll hope we get more of that happening in the future. So another major program, and this is kind of an exciting one. We started looking at a real need for up-to-date enhanced forest inventory on private land in Ontario, meeting that need. Nothing had really been done in the way of forest inventory since 1978, 79, and so terribly dated. And, you know, things have changed a lot since 40, 45 years ago. So this is a kudo to the International Model Forest Network and NRCan. The group there, Rich Verbisky, said, well, let me help you scope the project and see what we can do to get, you know, an initial pilot going. We got an initial pilot going. We developed, you know, I guess what you would call a comprehensive project plan or program plan. And we put together something that would allow us to create up-to-date enhanced forest inventory for all private land in Ontario. And that was, you know, that scoping document, the plan was very much a part of the International Model Forest Network initiating a little bit of funding to allow us to do that. And we had success right away. And that was part of the deal for the funding from the IMFN was, you know, get some grant proposals out, and we did. And our first success was the Ontario Trillium Foundation, and they gave us a grant of $50,000 to produce private land inventory for South Nation conservation. Again, one of our participants in our certification program, our umbrella certification program. So we had a little pilot with an intern from the U of T, who we hired full time, Ben Gwillem, eventually, and we did you know, an inventory for the United Counties of Prescott and Russell, which included the LaRose Forest, and that was successful. Just kind of a summer internship, and we took what we learned there, took the Trillium Foundation grant, were able to hire Ben on full time for that year, and basically we're able to produce a really nice inventory for South Nation conservation using existing LiDAR, which wasn't being used to its full potential in a lot of jurisdictions, and high resolution satellite imagery, and a lot of field data collection with forestry students, mainly from Algonquin College and Fleming College, and calibrating and validating the inventory. And it was quite a good quality inventory we were able to create with that. And Trillium Foundation was very happy with the result. And they said, well, now we've really learned how to do this. And this was, you know, about a couple of years ago. We applied to the Nature Smart Climate Solutions Fund and said, you know, if we have good forest inventory, enhanced forest inventory in Ontario, it would really help us, you know, with biomass management to do, you know, good stewardship, forest management. It would help us to mitigate climate change, or at least, you know, adapt and manage to climate change realities. And, you know, hand in hand with that, and they're concerned about this, is it'll help us to battle biodiversity loss or threats to biodiversity. And lo and behold, we got a huge grant from the Nature Smart Climate Solutions Fund, 5 years, 1.2 million, which we leveraged with a whole bunch of other organizations, both cash and in kind, to build a $3 million program. And we hired again Ben Gwillim, the original U of T intern who did the work in Prescott and Russell and South Nation, to do this for the whole province, all the private land in the province. And we've had tremendous luck. A $3 million project. We're 2 years, we're going to be 3 years into it, start the third year soon, I think. And it's gone exceptionally well. We found that there's a lot of good data out there that we can make into inventory, and we can calibrate and validate it with all the student help from the different colleges, and they get real world experience. Again, just great participatory management and activity that's contributing to the big picture in Ontario, and giving us good inventory, helping us to inform Forest Service providers and landowners of what they have and what they can do with it to be good stewards, to manage well. And it's been such a tremendous positive win. Just thank all the partners and organizations that are contributing and helping us. And there's a steering committee that oversees this, meets 4 or 5 times a year, and helps us to manage the program and make sure we're making good progress. And of course, again, you know, enhanced inventory gives us so much that helps us to manage the forest well and manage for all those values that are critical. And it's a game changer. Anyone that's worked in the forest sector knows that if you have good forest inventory, it's your foundation. You know, you can.
John, this is Sharon speaking.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Just so you know, the slide is not advancing. We're still at the carbon offset program slide.
Okay. So that was a few back, eh?
Yeah, I guess.
I wonder why that's happening. Maybe what I'll do is I'll stop sharing for a minute.
Okay.
And we will fire that back up again.
Okay.
Hopefully this will fix it. It's like kind of a presentation reboot. Okay, can you see the new slide now?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
You can go to the full screen now.
Go to the full screen. How's that?
It's perfect.
Okay, so I'll just backtrack for a second here. I don't want to belabor it too much, but yeah, that's where it froze at that one.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so yeah, I've already talked to these slides. Unfortunately, they weren't advancing for whatever reason. The computer gremlins are acting up again. But yeah, this just gives you an idea of some of the visuals I was referring to with the different sort of key points. The Ontario Trillium Foundation grant we got. Can you see all the partners and their logos there now?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, great. All right, so yeah, and again, and there's more than this. It keeps growing and building all the time. But you know, again, Environment and Climate Change Canada has been a huge supporter and see the value of this and how it integrates and interrelates to our certification program, and what we're trying to do, again, for climate change mitigation, as well as, biodiversity loss, addressing biodiversity loss. So we're coming along here. And hopefully that's advancing. And I think this is where I left off. So yeah, the forest inventory, again, gives us so much, and it's a foundation for doing good forest management. Anyone, again, who's worked in forestry will tell you that if you have good inventory, that really starts you on the right trajectory, on the right path to, doing good forest management, stewardship, and dealing with all of the values, and making sure things are sustainable. And best management practices, stewardship excellence, that's what we're all about. Again, it's under our certification program. It's integrated with everything we do at the IMFN OWA. And it's vitally important that we have good inventory for our certification program. I'm going to talk in a minute about the Community Forest Owners Cooperative. We got farm woodlot management. We're doing some 30-30 land and water conservation projects, again, with Environment Climate Change Canada. I mentioned carbon management, climate change mitigation already several times, and we've got a municipal forest bylaw effectiveness project. There's a lot of projects we're doing, which I won't get into great detail, but it all meshes. It all is key to delivering an overall successful mandate for both the UMF and OWA. And again, that coming together that I talked about earlier has really enhanced our ability to do that, and to bring in all kinds of people to help us deliver these programs, but at the same time, the human resources and the volunteer capacity. So I mean, really well in that respect. Oops. Sorry, I went right to the end. That was bad. Yeah, there's where I wanted to go. Can you see the Community Forest Owners Cooperative slide now, Sharon?
Yep.
Okay,
I can see
great.
it.
I won't press the end again. So this is another, kind of the three key programs that I really wanted to mention today, were, of course, the certification, which we talked about, and then the inventory work that we're doing. And the third one is these cooperatives. And I mentioned earlier, we've been very good at tree planting, but not really great at the follow-up, the management that's needed afterwards. And as a result, we have, one of the issues around this that was the impetus behind the creation of a couple of cooperative pilots, was a lot of these plantations around never had the thinning that should have happened. They're red pine or spruce, and they should have been thinned, and thinned periodically and regularly, not only to keep the forest healthy and to keep them on the right trajectory succession wise, but there's some revenue to be realized by the landowner usually. And there's more complexity to this than I'm going to talk about, but these plantations, there's hundreds of thousands of hectares of them. They desperately need to be thinned and treated and managed actively, so that all these things can happen. Some of them need invasive control. Invasive species have taken root, like dog strangling vine or buckthorn, whatever. They need that. And ultimately, what we want to do is create an ecosystem where shade tolerant trees, natural indigenous trees, can start to come up in the understory and reestablish a more natural hardwood forest, and working towards that. So again, we're just trying to make things positive on an ecosystem level, to enhance biodiversity. This kind of management really does help with carbon sequestration and storage. You're making products out of the trees that are harvested. You're growing more trees, bigger trees as time goes on, and eventually you're establishing a more natural ecosystem of hardwoods that will in the future store carbon. So again, having a good inventory, this is all really good and needs to be managed under the certification programs. We often work very closely and hand in hand with what's called the MIFTIP program in Ontario, Managed Forest Tax Incentive Program, which has many thousands of landowners, they get a managed forest plan done, which includes all of these sorts of values and sort of what the landowner wants to accomplish or realize with their management regime. And very often it can and does include the active management and harvesting that improves your forest ecosystems and makes things better overall. So we're doing that, and these cooperatives have worked really well in our Huronia and Kawartha chapters. It's become a regular program of the OWA. We're continuing to slowly build them up. There's been some good funding from the Ministry of Natural Resources, Forest Biomass Program. All of the landowners where we've harvested, and there's probably been 15 or 20 so far to date between the two cooperatives, have either broken even or made a little money. And the OWA, for its work in coordinating and making sure this happens, working with the forest service providers, et cetera, to make things happen, takes a percentage cut too. I think that ultimately, though, what you hear from most landowners is they're not really interested in the money so much as they realize these plantations are not healthy, and some of them are even collapsing in on themselves or have that potential, and they need the intervention to get them back on the right successional pathway and to be healthy again. And that's good to see and hear. And part of our mandate is to educate and mentor landowners so that they're realizing and seeing this, but some of them are seeing it on their own. So it's really good. So just gonna kind of finish with some photos of different events and activities from our various programs. This is a class from Algonquin College at the Woodlot of Tony Bull, the former president of the Eastern Ontario Model Forest. And the students were learning about his really good management under MIFTIP and forest certification. And he's got a mixed forest as well as some really healthy, well-managed red pine plantations. Did a third thinning a couple of winters ago, made some money, and he keeps his forest healthy, and it's a great educational location. Prescott and Russell, where they again have done harvesting that's healthy and sustainable and long-term, and they're under a certification program. This is, I think, the LaRose Forest. And this is an audit. I think I was on this one, and I took that picture, but again, just looking at the different sorts of practices going on. I think this might have been Quinte Conservation, and seeing that things are being done well, done right. They passed the audit, no problem. Wetlands are a key component of what we're doing, and those types of ecosystems are written into the plans. We have a partnership with Ducks Unlimited that they'll actually fund part of a managed forest tax incentive program plan and help the landowner if it includes wetland management. So particularly on larger wetland areas. So a really nice woodlot in our Lanark chapter. And the fellow on the left there is Dick Lalonde, who's Indigenous and has a really wonderful perspective and philosophy and value set on how to manage his land. And it fits so well with the certification. He's going to be opening up our Huronia conference, our provincial conference in Huronia in late April with the traditional Indigenous acknowledgement and welcome. He's known as Chief Dreamcatcher. And this is Renfrew County. You see on the far left there is Lacey Rose, who's their forester, and they're certified under our program and do some really great work. I see some tree markings been done in this particular stand. Yeah, not sure where that one was taken, but get some ideas there. Again, this is probably an audit, and it's kind of the dream job for some of us. We get to wander around in forest, talking forest management and seeing all the good practices that are done and making sure that they're done well and done right. And we get paid for this. At least I like to think I do. I try to tag along when I can, but I don't get to go as often as I would like. Lacey there again on the right, great forester, does such good work. She's got quite a YouTube following with her Mighty Machines video series. I guess Mighty Jobs or Mighty Machines, but really neat. She looks at all kinds of different forestry equipment and travels around the world and gets these videos done. And just more operations and audits, and different activities. Beautiful understory, some good regeneration happening there. That's what we like to see. I personally like down woody debris to some degree. I don't like a vacuum clean forest. I think it's great for the soil and the critters. But by the same token, you want to make sure you have good utilization and, you know, what you can use sustainably in terms of biomass. It's the balancing act. More really excellent regeneration. I'm pretty sure that's the LaRose forest. All certified. I think this was I was on this one. It's an oak savanna, black oak savanna kind of ecosystem, which I'd never seen before. And it was really interesting to me. You can see why we like our jobs. But, you know, all these folks, we all work together. We all participate. We're always trying to manage things well, right, good stewardship, making a difference locally, regionally, and contributing to what's needed globally. Happy people. Everyone's smiling when they're in the forest. That's our program manager for the certification program, Glenn on the far left. And does a great job. He's really built the program. He was given a good foundation, but he's really evolved it and grown it very strongly. It's been quite good. That's Olivia, our communications coordinator. Does a great job. She even gets out in the field. This is one of my favorite pictures at the end here. Thank you for listening, by the way, and it's been a pleasure for me to present. If you look at this picture, on the far right is Paul Robertson, whose house I'm at right now. He's the current president of the Eastern Ontario Model Forest, and beside him is Tony Bull, the immediate past president of the Eastern Ontario Model Forest. And then further to the left is Abraham Francis of the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne, who was formerly on the executive board of the Eastern Ontario Model Forest and the OWA, and Kayla Sunday, who is currently on the Eastern Ontario Model Forest Board and the executive of the OWA as the current representative of the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne. This was a reconciliation tree plant about 1.5 to 2 years ago down in Eastern Ontario, run by Plenty Canada. And I think I'm pretty sure I took the picture because I was there and I had a shovel too. So anyway, thanks again, folks. I hope this is giving you a good overview of, you know, kind of where we've come from, what we've been doing, where we're going. And I think, you know, there's a lot of potential and positive opportunities ahead, particularly the International Model Forest Network. So much more we can do, so much we've done. I'm going to give one final little sort of I guess an announcement, but not a formal or official one. We're very happy that Eastern Ontario Model Forest, OWA, we've been asked to host the International Model Forest Network Global Forum next year, 2025, in Eastern Ontario around Kemptville and the Greater Ottawa regions. First one since COVID, and we're hoping to get a big crowd in from all over the world. These are very, very valuable sessions. We're going to tie it in and piggyback it with our provincial conference in our Lower Ottawa Valley chapter. Probably be May 2025, but we're starting the planning and getting the logistics sort of set up, and should be a great conference, international conference next year, and a chance for all model forests to wave their flag and tell us about the good things they've done, because we sure can learn a lot from each other. You know, we may be different ecosystems, different, you know, different parts of the world, but there's a lot more similarity and commonality than differences, and we can all help and learn from each other. So very excited about the global forum happening in 2025 next May, but it's going to be formally announced, and probably the politicians will want some photo ops at some point in the near future. So stay tuned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, John. That was a great presentation. Now we can move on to the questions. While we're waiting for participants to finish typing their questions, let's take a moment to fill out the post-webinar survey. Hold on one moment. I'll launch it. There's 3 questions in total. You may need to scroll down to see all of the questions. Okay, John, you ready to answer some questions?
Yeah, for sure. I'm just sending a note that I'm going to be late for my next Zoom. I scheduled things a
Okay.
little bit too tight. So yeah, certainly ready.
All right. So the first question for you is, will each landowner get access to the forest inventory, or will it become publicly available via an open access map app like in our NRF Mega Topo?
Yeah, good question. Definitely, this will be accessible and open to the public, to all landowners, forest service providers. We're creating it with public money, and that's really vital. And to me, if it's not available, it's of no use. Like, we need people to use it to help them be good stewards to manage their forests. So yeah, it'll be an open portal. We're working on that. And Ben, who is responsible for that project, is pretty savvy with computers and IT and that. And he's showing me some working models of that portal, and pretty soon should be available. But yeah, we give it right back to the municipalities or the different folks that we're working with, the partners. There's another organization called CRIBE, the Center for Research and Innovation in Bioeconomy. They've been a huge supporter and helped us a lot with this project, and they have a portal too. It'll be available on theirs.
Okay, next question for you. Have you established sample plots or proxies to monitor growth and yield in the various forest types?
Yes, we have. That's these are really good questions. Not that I'm surprised, but we've got very good plot location sort of let's say planning and delivery. And for say for example, Prescott and Russell, there were over 200 plots established, and they were again the data collected by forestry students, supervised by good mentors from Algonquin College, and that data was used to calibrate, and we'll go back and possibly use to validate later. But yeah, the plots were stratified and all different forest conditions and sites, and making sure that the LiDAR is not lying, and the algorithms that take the LiDAR, the high resolution imagery, whatever, and kind of process that, what they're producing is actually accurate. So that's really good question. We've done a lot of field work, a lot of plot work, and it's to a very high standard from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, and their inventory standard, and others developed by folks that are in the know on this sort of thing. So protocol's good.
So next question for you, John. Does thinning typically occur every 10 to 15 years?
I'm sorry?
Does thinning typically occur every 10 to 15 years?
I'm not sure what you're asking. It occurs every 10 to 15 years.
So I guess we'll have to wait to this participants to specify the question a little bit more.
Oh,
I
does thinning
just
thinning typically occur every 10 to 15 years? I got it. Yeah,
okay.
it depends. It depends on the need of the forest, but yeah, you're looking at Well, I'm not a forester, but my understanding is, in the typical sort of, say, a plantation stand, that sort of thing, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but, every 15 to 20 years, I think is more what you look at. But, you go in and you measure the basal areas and you see, you don't just do it based on how long it's been. You actually take a look, use some data collection tools and, measure some diameters, and you do a prism sweep and get the basal area and all that. But yeah, generally 15 to 20 years, I would say, based on those data, those data that are collected.
One more question for you, John. Is there ongoing efforts to recruit new chapters into the organization?
Short answer, yes. It's under my watch and my list of responsibilities. And I want to expand us into the north. I think there's an opportunity for 6 new chapters. There's a lot of privately owned forest up in northern Ontario, north central, northwestern Ontario, particularly along the highway corridors and in around the communities up there. Thunder Bay, for instance, has plenty, and Kenora and Timmins and Dryden everywhere. So yeah, it's something I really would like to do in the next couple of years before I retire. It's just a matter of it making its way to the top of the priority list, but it's in the works or planned.
Thank you, John, for answering all the questions. So if there are no more questions coming up, I would like to bring this session to a close. Thank you all for participating in today's webinar session. And once again, thank you very much to John for the great presentation. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.